Hello everyone, it's time for another Tekken and Coffee. It's been a while since I made one of these. I've missed making them. They're some of my favorite videos that I do. I want to apologize if you hear any loud noises during this one. They're building a house next to my house and it's been very loud all day and very annoying, but something I'm kind of trying to work on, I guess, as a person lately is being more accepting of things I have no power over. I think that's really important, and for me, noise is a big one. I really don't like loud noises. That's why I struggle being around children. So for this one, I'm just going to roll with the punches and go with the flow and see what happens. But if you do hear any loud bangs during the video, then I am sorry about that. Let's see what people have been talking about in the world of Tekken recently. What character can we all agree on that is liked by everyone, both story-wise and gameplay? The closest I could think of is Armor King. Well, there's definitely no Tekken character that everybody enjoys. You know, it's funny, you'll be making a YouTube video about like an inoffensive, like underpowered character that you wish had more attention, and then right away someone will be in the comments talking about how it's a super annoying character with way too much power that is extremely cancerous, or something like that, probably because they recently had a very bad experience playing against that character. So it's like that for like all of them, but some characters do seem to be more liked than others, and Armor King is a good example. I think Miguel might be an even better example. Most people seem to be excited when Miguel shows up. He has a lot of style, he's fun, and another symptom, I think, of being a liked character is that the character isn't very good, because if they are, they become popular, you have to play against them, and it's difficult to win against them, and that changes your opinion of the character. You know, you have all of these negative connotations. But Miguel is kind of on the weak side, not very popular, and very like stylish and cool. So I think that's why people are excited about him. And then story, I don't know if Tekken characters have stories really. It's more like a line, you know, they this character is looking for this thing, so they enter the tournament to find it, and that's it. With Miguel, there's a little bit more drama. You know, there's that great cutscene where he's watching his sister's wedding from across the square, and it's bombed and she gets killed, and he's so agonized by it, and that's his motivation, and he wants to take his revenge on Jin. But a cool thing about him also is like that cutscene and like his small semblance of a story, he actually preserves that energy when he's playing it on the stage as well, which is really cool. You know, it's not like most characters have like a motivation and then that actually influences what they sound and feel like on the stage. So that's another cool aspect of Miguel that I really enjoy. Tekken 8 character episodes. You want to see character episodes again in Tekken 8. I think, I don't remember which, was it Tekken 6 or Tekken Tag 2, where instead of these character episodes where they fight each other and there's like an awkward little interaction, all the characters had their own like arcade ending. But the really cool thing is I think they outsourced those cutscenes to like different artists, so they all had different art styles and felt very different. I remember the Christie one was like a weird pencil drawing thing where she was like lost in a train station looking for Eddie or something like that. I don't remember exactly all of it, but I do think it was cool how they had different art styles for different characters, and they did a lot of fun stuff with that. So I would prefer something like that. I think the arcade ending is a Tekken classic that I would prefer to what they did in Tekken 8. I'm not a, or in Tekken 7 I should say, I'm not a huge fan of what happened with the single player modes of this game, which I've talked about before. The best returning female character, gameplay, design, story: Elisa, Anna, Julia, Zafina, Kunimitsu. So I guess we're talking about like, oh, DLC, yeah. For me, it's definitely going to be Zafina because I think she looks cool, sounds cool. I think there's a lot of like nice, fun design ideas. I like the hand. So she would be my pick. She's also a character that I play a lot and really enjoy. So out of those, I would say her for sure. What else? We got some not safe for work Josie Rizal here. The reason I haven't been doing as many of these episodes is that, you know, there's a lot more of this and less, you know, questions about how to play the game. I guess, you know, Tekken is late in its lifespan right now, so fewer people are trying to learn the game as new players, and more players are probably just like jerking off watching the characters, which is a great thing, you know, depending on how you look at it. It's just difficult to make, you know, naked art of Josie a basis for an interesting discussion. Or maybe we should do like a show where I like rate Rule 34 art. Let me know if you think that sounds interesting, but that's probably a nightmare in terms of like YouTube rules and stuff. Oh yeah, this one, how to play Kazumi. I saw this video on YouTube. It's like a hyper compact guide on how to play Kazumi. And you know, when I do character guides, they're sometimes like 2 or 3 hours long. That's the kind of video I really enjoy making and really enjoy watching. My favorite character guides that I ever watched were those old ones that Ares did for Tag 2, where he talked for like 4 hours about Feng, because it's not just information. You get a lot of like insights that come with playing a character for a large amount of time. But I watched this video and it's really good, because if you already know a lot about Tekken and you just want like some condensed information on the starter kit and like what to start with the character, it was actually very, very concise. And I also agreed with everything they said in the video, so definitely check this guide out and give this person some support. I don't know if they're new on YouTube, but I want to show support for like great stuff like this, because it's something we haven't really seen that much so far, like these hyper compact guides. I did one as a joke on Kunimitsu in one of my videos. That was a surprise. Like, I did it as an intro for another video, and the point of that whole thing was I was making fun of the character design because I think it's not that well executed, but people were like, that's a really good guide for Kunimitsu, you should do more of these. So yeah, I was kind of like, it worked, people liked it, but not for the reasons I expected. They don't know I'm Gembu on PS4. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to be in Japan where people still play on console, so I can get matches all the time. How could I improve my pressuring, defense, and punishment? So that's 3 like different things. Well, defense or punishment are kind of the same, I guess. I'm very new to Tekken. I used to play a bit of Tekken 6 some years ago, but I was a kid. I mean, I can't read this whole thing, but my big tip would just play the game a lot, like all the time, and don't play offline. Play real matches online, and it doesn't matter if you're in the low ranks and you're losing all the time. I think the most important thing is that you play a lot and don't get stuck during doing the same things and get stuck in like flowcharts. If you're trying to adapt and you try and do new things with your character, maybe I should use this move more, maybe I should move more in this kind of situation, maybe I should go in more and throw like more lows, maybe I need to do more lows, stuff like that, and you're trying to change and adapt, then you will sort of subconsciously evolve as a player, because your brain is laying the puzzle for you. You can't break it all down into like information and numbers, because fighting games are so fast that they have to be like based more in instinct and gut feeling. So you're trying to develop that instinct and that gut feeling, and that doesn't happen because you like focus on like learning these specific things. You have to expose yourself to them, and then just make sure that you don't get stuck making the same mistakes and all trying to adapt. So yeah, short answer is play a lot of online and try to do different things all the time, and then you will sort of find out what works over time. Cursed video, we better not watch that. Do you like fighting Leroy in Season 4? You know, I personally don't, even though they've nerfed him a lot. I think my big problem with him from the start was mainly down 3-2, but a couple of other lows. His lows are so good, and then you give him the orbital, which is a safe mid-launcher, so he can mix that with extremely low risk, and then when the lows connect, either the Hell Sweep gives him the knockdown, but the down 3-2, the guaranteed stance mix-up with advantage, and then the stance mix-up also has, you know, an orbital in it, and it just kind of turns into this 50-50 guessing game that is extremely compact, and it can be super claustrophobic to play against. At least now I feel like if you're able to break through that pattern that Leroy is applying, and able to stay agile, then usually if you're playing at the same rank as them, because they get away with doing that so often, you probably have better knowledge and fundamentals overall compared to that player, and then you can try and capitalize on that. Put him at minus frames and then see if he knows about the frames and if he's going to eat counter hits. Like usually they will. But then if you go to the very top ranks, that goes away because everybody's extremely good and knows most of the frame data. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't think it's there yet, even though it's a lot better, but they didn't nerf the most important thing. I think down 3-2 should only be natural on counter hit, and I've said that since the beginning. And I've also said that I don't think it's a valid argument that Hwoarang has something similar. I don't think that makes it better. He's still one of the coolest looking characters ever though, and his combos, like doing them and hitting with them, is like super fun. So I kind of wish they got him to a point where I personally didn't feel awkward about playing him, because then I probably would. And I would probably like play some of my favorite hip-hop music, like some Wu-Tang stuff, and play Leroy and have a, you know, good time doing that. So I hope they get it right soon. But he's been such loved design since he came out that I'm pretty sure he's going to be in subsequent versions of this game. So eventually we will see a very balanced Leroy, I'm willing to bet. How good is Dragunov currently? Maining him for third week. My playstyle is defensive and Dragunov is considered very all-round, but I can't even get to Fujin rank. Well, some people you know, can't get to Fujin rank with any character, even though they've been playing for a long time in Season 4. It's not super easy. I think it's a pretty high rank in Season 4 for the average player. But how good is Dragunov currently? The interesting thing about Dragunov is he started out extremely good and then he changed. I don't think he really dramatically changed in terms of like relative power or tier list or whatever. The thing is, like, he still has that super effective trifecta up forward, forward, down 2 and running 2. And that's so good and so solid, and it's never going to let you down, and you can keep on applying it and working on getting the running 2 out at a really short range and really fast. But then they kept adding so many more characters and strange things that are even more powerful than Dragunov, that relatively he probably feels weaker. But if he's playing against another like reasonable character, I think he's actually super solid. So you're definitely not like hindering your progress by playing Dragunov the way you might be if you're playing like a seriously weak character. I think he's still very strong. Yeah, it's officially over. RIP Zaibatsu. Zaibatsu was this like really important platform for the generation of players that came before mine. So when I was starting to play this game and learn and watch videos, all these people would refer to Zaibatsu. So I'd go there and like read stuff and get information there. But at that point, it was already the world was like shifting from that kind of a forum to more social media or like YouTube based stuff. It is sad. They did a you know, a service to the community, and it was an important thing for a long time. But you know, times change. But you know, rip in peace. Lots of respect. What else? Would you prefer if they ended support for Tekken 7 after Season 2? Yes and no. I would have preferred if they didn't necessarily keep adding characters, but another really fun part of Seasons, the most fun part of Seasons for me, is you go in and there are all these balance changes for existing characters, and some of the weaker characters get buffs, and it's really fun to try them out and you know, seeing the meta shift a little bit. And so I'd be super on board with stuff like that happening, where new like really impactful big bunches of patch notes come out and all the currently existing characters change in interesting ways, and you can look at what character is underrepresented, what character has a very low success rate in matches. I'm gonna have a drink of coffee here because as usual I'm losing my voice. You know, it's funny, like if I don't drink enough coffee in videos like this, people will like tell me in the comments how it's only Tekken, it's not Tekken and coffee, and I have to drink more. So I'm sticking to the theme. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so like patch notes and like balance changes are super fun and super exciting, but in terms of Seasons, they just kept getting overshadowed by the new DLC characters, and then what I'm trying to not address that much in this video, but the balance issues that came along with those DLC characters. So I would be fine with them doing like many more seasons and a lot more content, but I think we're done for DLC characters. Dragunov tips. Any advice for a drag novice? Well, I mentioned that trifecta earlier of down 2, running 2, and up forward 4, which sounds like a meme and people are like trolling Dragunov about it, but it is super effective and solid playstyle. And then you're going to mix in, you know, your jab strings with the counter hit properties, and you can do really, really well. Focus on a small collection of really strong moves. Maybe also, you know, mix in the back 1+2, and if you're playing in the lower ranks, you can get really far with his grappling because he's at advantage so often and opponents tend to wait against him. You can get really far with grappling, and the risk reward ratio on the down 2 is still very good. Who do you like the most? Oh, who do you find the most annoying to fight? Asuka, Elisa, Lily, Kunimitsu, Lucky Chloe. Lucky Chloe I don't have. I mean, when she hits you with her back turned forward 3+4 launcher, it's a lot of damage, but Lucky Chloe is a character that I don't struggle beating. I think she's kind of easy to deal with as long as you sidewalk a lot. And you can throw out like long range mids and try and find her exactly when she's manually going into back turn and get a lot of damage on the back. She's duckable. She has to rely on some really block punishable options as well, so don't have an issue with her. And Kunimitsu for me is probably the worst one right now because of how I feel about her balancing, but I kind of find all of these characters sort of annoying to play against. But there you go. It's like I said earlier, like it's all about, you know, your experiences of playing online. It's difficult to be objective. Asuka is another big one for me that I've found really annoying in the past. And here is Hector Garay. That's not the way you pronounce it, but this is the voice actor for Miguel, and as you can tell, he's a handsome and cool-looking guy who did a fantastic job with the character. So, absolute legend. Thank you to him. What else? How do I decide whether to use cheese or play proper? I'm trying to play Tekken World Tour Elisa with just down forward 4 and back 1, but I put Elisa in a bikini, which exposed all of her cheese, and now all of this punishable cheese is just staring me in the face. Help. Down forward 4, back 1. Back 1 is like a move. If you use it a lot with Elisa, you can tell if a Elisa player is really good, if they really want to do a lot of back 1 and like full crouch stuff, or whether or not they're gonna, like, you know, fly, do down 3 or running options the whole time. You know, the people who rely on the gap closers, and then the people who rely more on the long range and really effective pokes. You can tell a lot about an Elisa player based on that. So it's a good idea to try and I think break her down more to the really basic stuff, because it's some of the best stuff she has. And then also her chainsaws kept getting better and I think are in a good spot right now. And you can axe them off some really good moves like Sad Hound, the 1-1 block punish and moves like that. Punishable cheese. Best Tekken storyline to turn into a movie. I guess the one I mentioned earlier with Miguel would be a good one. I think the Mishima storyline is kind of like melodramatic. It feels like a bad soap opera to me, so I wouldn't turn that into a movie. But then again, it's definitely what every Tekken movie ever made is going to be about, because that's the main story of the game. Katarina top moves. Somebody asking about Katarina, that's rare. And she's one of those characters I mentioned earlier where, like, you make a video about her, you talk about her, and then right away she's like, she's cancer and she's terrible and whatever. And it's sad because I wanted more for this character. I actually kind of like her. Hi guys, are there any cat mains who could help me out? Looking to pick her up. Can't find any Season 4 guides. Katarina's top moves are, her down forward 1 is worse now. It used to be very good. It's slightly worse, but it's still very important. You have to do a lot of down forward 1 with her. Her lows are bad, which is probably her biggest weakness. I think the best one she has is down 3 and down 4. Down 3 doesn't even have high crush, which is why you have to use down 4. And then go into Harrier and use Harrier 1. Surprisingly effective, even though it's not extremely good on paper. It actually counter hits even good players, and when it counter hits, has high crush, by the way, so when people try and jab you out of Harrier, you go under that, which is why another reason why it's good. But when it does counter hit, you do 4-4-3 down 3+4, and that's a guaranteed combo for almost full combo damage, very high damage, which is great. You have to throw hop kicks and other launchers, even though they are punishable and risky, but the risk reward ratio for Katarina just is in favor of her attempting launchers, because her combo damage is so extremely good, and so is her combo carry. Other key moves would be like, I would say you really do have to do Tekken tail sometimes, even though it is like -14 I think right now, so some characters can launch it and it is on the slow side, but it has a really extreme range and surprisingly good tracking. So do that's down forward 3+4 by the way, and then down forward 4 for a 15 frame solid counter hit launcher. And another move that people like never use with this character that is very good, that I recommend people use more, is her down 1. Surprisingly amazing, really good range. And some half-assed counter properties. Need some advice for playing action games like Tekken with Tourette's? Well, that's going to depend on what kind of Tourette's you're talking about. If it's mainly verbal and you're just going to swear and call your opponent names when you're playing, then you're just going to sound like any other Tekken player playing online. But if it's more physical, let's read what he asks actually. Playing this game struggles sometimes. High intensity moments because my ticks. Moving hand and head. Okay, so it's a more like a physical thing for this guy. And I'm definitely no expert, so I probably shouldn't, you know, give you medical advice. But if it happens during high intensity moments, you know, whether or not something is high intensity is kind of in the mind. So maybe try something I did in the past which really worked for me, was like doing a short meditation before I play online. Sounds silly, but it is so mental and so about focus that it can be a really good thing. And if you're not into meditation, another thing that works really well is just a walk or some light exercise. If you can, maybe get some sunlight even, or a light evening walk. I'll sometimes just go to the, you know, convenience store at night and buy a drink or something, and look at the sky and get some oxygen in my lungs, and that kind of, you know, resets you a little bit, and maybe that could help you find a space where it's easier to not get, you know, into that high intensity vibe where these things start happening to you. But like I said, I know so little about this that it's difficult for me to say. But as a player and not, you know, as somebody who knows anything about Tourette's, that's the advice that I would give you. Everything I do in neutral seems to be the wrong decision. Every time I try to poke, take a step back, whiff punish. Every time I rush in. Yeah, this is a feeling that I think all Tekken players get. I get it sometimes as well, and it's really bad and it feels terrible. But the thing is, you start noticing it and worrying about it and thinking about it, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I think the fact that you're worrying about it and like, how do I manage to be like this bad or have luck this bad? Like, I'm just trying to throw like a standard tiny little poke, and sometimes or somehow I just manage to get evaded and launched for it. But that's like these negative spirals that you get into. There are going to be times where you feel like everything is just connecting magically and beautifully and everything is going great. And sometimes when you're doing well, your opponent is sitting there thinking, how am I doing this poorly? Every decision I make is wrong. That's obviously not the case. I mean, if all of the decisions you're making are wrong, then I guess watch some players who have been very successful with your character, try and look at their repertoire and sort of their rhythm. I'm trying to get back into Miguel right now, so I've been watching Glaciating and Steffi Black, and I learned a lot just watching them for like half an hour, like how you have to sometimes really just randomly throw stuff from Savage even on block just to maintain an offensive presence, and really throwing, for example, Savage back 3 more with the armor property and getting the guaranteed follow-up right there, making them respect Savage more on block, which is something I never did before. So that's one idea. But if your repertoire and your sort of rhythm seems similar to what good players using your character are doing, then I think it's more of a mental state. What are some good setups for the running shoulder? The plus 14. I think he's talking about the invincible armored tackle when you run from full screen. What you're going to do when you get that kind of advantage is you're just going to apply a mix-up. And so whatever you have in terms of like fast lows that you mix with good mids or safe mids is what you want to throw there. So just apply your standard good mix-up that you have. If your opponent is, you know, seems very trigger happy or not very knowledgeable, you could attempt to throw like a fast counter hit mid, but most people aren't going to be swinging into that because they can really feel the block stun of that tackle. Combo guide for Season 4 Eliza. That's good. Check it out if you play the character. I'm sorry I haven't been talking much about her, but I haven't been playing her much. I'm honestly a little bit sad about what they did to her. But it's fine. I'll be back to her sooner or later. I always go back to Eliza and Miguel. I'm never not playing them for that long. Is there a character mod for Tekken 7 of Kamen Rider? I don't know. I've never watched that show, but I know that Bob's rage art is based. Bob has like the worst rage art ever because he jumps into the air, then inexplicably jumps off of something and gains momentum in midair, which looks terrible to me. But I think that's supposed to be a reference to this show, Kamen Rider, which is some sort of like insect Knight Rider kind of superhero Japanese show that mainly like middle-aged guys really seem to enjoy in this country. Like a lot of my colleagues who are like in their 40s, they will like, you know, buy little Kamen Rider toys and stuff because it's like an institution in Japan. You know, it's been around for a long time. After a patch, should the Tekken dev team make a statement for each character about why the changes were made? Wow, that's an amazing idea. That could be really interesting, like some developer insights. I think very often we see balance changes in this game and we become like confused about why those choices were made. A big example being, you know, Hell Sweep Gate, but really with any given character, like in any given season, I would like, for example, to know, we talked about Katarina earlier, okay, so you have a character that is really weak, but also disliked because of her overemphasized big, heavy lows. So you make her even weaker, like gradually weaker and weaker and weaker, so people aren't gonna want to play her because she's weak, and then you keep emphasizing those big, like heavy lows that give her this image problem and make people like her less. What about like get rid of some of that annoying stuff and then give her some more like solid options, throw in a good low that isn't tied to her stance or something like that, you know? So like if there's an idea behind that, like what we want to do with Katarina is this is our idea for what this character should be, I would be super interested in reading that. And I don't know, I don't give them a lot of credit with this kind of stuff. If you watch my videos, you know that I can be very critical when it comes to the balance decisions they make, but maybe, you know, you get some of those insights and you're like, oh yeah, I can see that and I can see what they're trying to do here. So I'd love that. Yeah, that would be amazing. Great idea. Need help choosing my first stick. One, Hori Real. I'm not a huge stick collector. I've only owned a couple through my life, but the one you mentioned here at number one, Hori Real Arcade, I have the Hayabusa, and it's an amazing stick that I'm very happy with. I like the compartments, I like the size, I like the weight. So I can't like tell you all these different good sticks that you could try, but I can tell you that the Real Arcade Pro is a great stick that I recommend. Something something Feng, something crushing mids, something launching me. Yeah. Feng is a really cool character, but there are a couple of moves. I mean, all Feng players do snake edges, for example. There are a couple of characters where it's just part of the design and you do throw them. Or like low launchers, I should say. Another example is like Anna, maybe Eddie, you know. He can't really threaten you with relaxed if he's never going to do low launchers. And I've said before that I would like prefer if low launchers as natural parts of mix-ups weren't really a thing. Maybe that could be conducive to a more enjoyable environment online, but who knows. Negan's lows. Picked up Negan recently. He's got some great pokes, counter hits that destroy your health. He's a blast to play. I agree. His counter hits are amazing, and he's really fun to play. One thing that strays me away from Negan is his lows. They don't have much range, and they're too much startup. He has, I think he has great lows, actually. Is it down back 4, which is the sweeping low with the counter hit property? But I think the coolest one really is down 3. It has that range problem that you mentioned. The range on this thing is really bad, but it's so fast. And if you're managing to stay close enough that it's going to hit, is it like 16 frames to impact? I think it might be even faster. It's like lightning quick and really good. If you have an opponent who is backed up against the wall or at heavy disadvantage or doesn't move or backdash that much, and I think down 3, the stomp is actually underrated as well. And then you can just use generic lows with him as well. So if you compare him to something like Katarina, who genuinely struggles for lows, I think Negan has a much better toolkit for this. Good lows overall. And there's the one with the built-in sidestep. I think it's 2+3 or forward 2+3 as a great move as well. When did every Negan player collectively agree to never skip their intros, outros? I don't know. It does seem to be the case. It's like one of those things, like law players having a bad connection. It's a joke, but it also seems to be true as far as I can tell. Negan players not skipping the intro is a meme, but it also seems to be true as far as I can tell. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe people were interested in seeing his weird human face, and you know, he has a bit more going on in his intros, so when he's a new character, it's like, I want to see what he's going to do. And then people got tired seeing that, so they started talking about it online, and the Negan players noticed, and they decided that it was a psychological weapon that they could use. Dear Kazuya players, please someone explain how you're doing perfect electric after counter it down forward 2. This has already been explained so many times, because it's like something that people who love Mishimas and Kazuya sit around and think about or practice all day. I bet you there are great videos by like veteran experts talking about specifically this on YouTube. I wouldn't be surprised if like Main Man has a really in-depth thing on this. I haven't looked it up because I'm not interested in learning it, but it is one of those things where instead of asking on Reddit, if you just search for it, there will be great resources. I can't imagine there not being good resources for learning that. What should I do with the shoulder button? So you're playing on PlayStation, it looks like. I used to say in my older videos that I'm not a big fan of key bindings, because the reason I said that was I think in Tekken it's such a difficult game where you really have to work hard on doing things well, and is it really a good idea to start relying on shortcuts? I'm very careful about that kind of thing. And that viewpoint of mine started changing when I started playing Elisa, because her EX moves for some reason aren't bufferable at all. And if you don't know exactly what that means, don't worry about it. It's basically just you can't rely on this technique called buffering to make those come out easier. And so because of that, it becomes very important to press 1+2 or 3+4 exactly at the same time and not mess that up, because if you do, you don't get your move. And so to make that a little bit easier, I started mapping 1+2 on my R1 and then 3+4 on my R2. So those are the only two bindings I have. And it's interesting because I don't really think about my hands. It's very subconscious, but sometimes when I play, sorry about the noise, Zafina, I will like do a combo and I'll notice how I'm like sometimes buffering a 3 and then pressing the 4 to get my 3+4, and sometimes I'm using my L1 bind, and sometimes I'm pressing them simultaneously without buffering, and your hands kind of travel over the controller and it becomes this weird dance. I want to like fill my hands more and like see what kind of weird like grips and things I'm actually doing. But those are two that I recommend, and I think they're important for Elisa. And I also think I've noticed that 3+4 bind comes really in handy when playing Miguel, because it allows you for a really nice fast manual savage. So if you want to run up, say you knock your opponent down and you want to run up and really quickly 4-Oki apply ground hitting savage down back 3, which is a good idea, by the way. You can run up, hit the 3+4, and then do that move, and it's really nice and quick. You can do it as quick without using a key binding, of course, but I like having a binding for manual Savage. It's made that move come out a little bit quicker for my Miguel, I think. What you do as a beginner, I think we answered that earlier. I think just play a lot and try to be flexible. Elise has Dark Blade on arcade stick. Has fucking Rum been over nerfed? Definitely not. Much like Leroy, I think they still honestly have some work to do there. And the thing to do is to compare him to other characters. And if you compare him to Miguel, for example, we've talked a lot about Miguel today, but maybe that's a good thing. Miguel's main issue being he has poor range. If you like tripled his range so that you started to approach the kind of range that fucking Rum has, he would still be a worse character than fucking Rum in terms of just frame data, properties, damage, and all the rest of it. So no, I don't think fucking Rum is where he needs to be yet. Do I need to learn every character to play Tekken Online properly? Yes and no. You definitely don't need to learn all of them in terms of like learning how to play them and learn their moves. What will happen is you will start learning your favorite characters and play them a lot, and then you will have all of these opponents, and then you will learn how to play against those opponents. So my advice has always been, as you become exposed to difficult to deal with things online, then look them up, look up how to deal with them, and then put that in your memory and your repertoire going forward, so that you're gradually building this library of knowledge. But if you sit down now and try and learn the basics of like 50 characters and then you go online, there's no way you're going to remember those things. And also, even if you remember them perfectly, they have no connection with actual physical experience, like kinetic experience of playing the game, which is so much more valuable, you know. So that's the better way to go about it. And it also, you know, happens naturally as you play the game if you do that. So it becomes easier to do. I think I might let that be it for this video because it's getting dark outside and I'm losing my voice even more. Have some more coffee. And now I think I'm going to shut this down and have a walk and then play some Kazumi, because that short guide that I saw earlier really made me feel like I want to check her out in this season. She's changed a lot, but I always really did enjoy Kazumi. She's like a character that has that really nice feel of being super basic in terms of the repertoire without being like stupid or unfair. So I think she's cool. I'm gonna do that tonight. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this. It was fun as usual. I'll see you guys in the next video.